Hey, Jim.
How's it going?
Man, it's just another day in the life. It's Atlanta. I live in the deep South, so 95 degrees, 100% humidity. If I owned hell in here, I rent this place out and live in hell.
Yeah, I spent about 8 months in Fort Benning, Georgia, so I know all about the humidity you can see in the air. Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, I when I race triathlons, I race for the medal, and I want a pin for my map. I put a pin where I race, right? I was too eager for the pin, and I signed up like deep backwoods Mississippi in the middle of June. And I didn't think about it until about a week before the race. I'm like, I am fucked. There was no thought involved in that. I'm like, yeah, oops.
Yeah.
So I've made worse decisions, though.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So, man, I found you. I think if Atlanta Cycling, you follow them or they follow you. I look for people, who have a story to tell. And, I hadn't really heard of you. And I worked for Performance Bicycle for like 3 years. Before that, it was kind of a crappy business and it collapsed. But so I never got to go to any of these events like this.
Sure. I'm sorry. I think I froze up here. There it is. Now it's working. All right.
Did you hear me?
You kind of. I think it's my internet here. I think it's working now.
I'll repeat myself. I said I worked for Performance Bicycle for 3 years. It's not exactly. It's kind of a crappy place that. But it went out of business, and I never had an opportunity to go to one of your shows or anything like that.
Sure.
Can you explain to me, obviously it's B2B, so this business to business.
Yeah. So we started the first show in Chicago when we only had the one kind of regional event. That was like 9 years ago now. Because at the time we were a trade association. It was the Chicago Area Bike Dealers Association. That's where we got the name CADBA from. And we would hold meetings in bike shops. We would hold, informational things on bike fitting or new products or insurance, anything of value to shop owners and business owners. And after about a year or two of doing that, I had this brilliant idea. And I said, well, how the hell hard could it be to run a trade show? And for my sins, I got this job.
I was going to say, is it more difficult than you imagine? Because that's usually how it works out with people.
Oh, considerably more difficult. Yeah. Like this, there's a ton that goes into it that I had no idea about, that we had to learn on the fly. So everything from, venue contracts to insurance to logistics to, I wasn't prepared for the, 100 phone calls a day or, 7,000 emails a month. Yeah, so all that little stuff we had to learn on the way. And then fast forward a couple years, we opened the show on the West Coast, originally in San Diego, and then we moved it to Los Angeles last year. And then 2 years ago, we opened the show on the East Coast, outside New York City.
Now, Chicago's a good location. I've only been there once for the Chicago Marathon, and I really loved it.
Mm-hmm.
They have that big convention center too. Is that where you were at?
So we hold all of our events just outside of metro areas. Since we're not open to the public, ease of getting there for 20,000 people doesn't really concern me.
Yes,
so I don't need to be right next to like a public transportation hub. I need to be next to a highway and next to an airport for all of our kind of exhibitors to kind of fly into. So we hold all of our events near airports and off of highways.
That makes sense. I mean, I'm imagining there's a lot of bikes being bought and sold, so they're dragging that around too.
So the bulk of our exhibitors are in the, again, B2B distribution business. So they're either bicycle brands that are selling pre-season orders to the dealers. They're either accessory companies who are selling, everything from, clothing to wheels to shoes to, everything you see on a bicycle will be bought and sold at our shows. But
Even
probably
those
the
stupid
biggest chunk
reflectors
of
on the
our
wheels.
probably the biggest chunk of our exhibitors are the distributors. So people who represent and sell multiple brands of parts and accessories. So it allows dealers to put together orders of multiple brands and parts.
Do they do it in bulk?
Oh yeah, they do it in bulk. They do it one at a time. They have all sorts of sales specials and promotional stuff. We do it all.
That's nice. I've got like a 6-year-old set of zips, and I could really use a new one, the 454s. I got my set of zips while I was working for Performance Bicycle. So it was like, 60% off. I'm like, thank you. Those pro deals were amazing.
I mean, it's also led to me having like 7 bicycles in my house when I probably only need 1.
I got 3.
Those are rookie numbers. Those are good. You can work on that.
I'm not married. I don't have a girlfriend. I don't have kids. So I don't have anybody to answer to. No boss either. So
yeah, my problem is I trip. Well, of the 7 that I have, I think 3 of them are rideable. So I just have parts and stuff lying around. So that's
yeah, that's a problem. You can trip over stuff, or you don't even know what you have, right?
Well, the bicycles I do, but the boxes and boxes of parts and saddles and tires and wheels and other parts that I have over the years that I can't seem to get rid of.
It sounds like the Wizard of Oz. Oh my. So tell me more. All right, so you've expanded to 3 cities. Are you going? You've got East Coast, West Coast, and Midwest. Are you going down south like Miami?
So we've played around with it. One of the reasons we picked our current cities, I need about 900 bicycle shops within about a 3-hour driving distance to get the kind of turnout that our exhibitors want out of it. 95% of our traffic is drive-in. We get some kind of foreign people flying into it. We get some outliers from different parts of the country flying into the events. But the vast majority are driving in from the local areas. And the only 3 places in the country where I can get that kind of concentration of bike shops are Southern California, Chicago, and New York. So we're looking at doing some other type of event. We haven't really figured out what the levers are yet. Maybe it's a demo, maybe it's a conference style event, maybe it's something else where we don't need that high concentration of turnout to be successful. And that gives us a type of event, a footprint that we can put into either Pacific Northwest or Texas or Florida. But we don't know what it looks like yet.
That's cool. So tell me when did you start this? Like how long ago? Was it 8 years ago? I thought I read.
So we brought back a dormant organization. So CADBA existed from the 70s through the 80s and 90s, and they had a successful trade show in Chicago for 25 years. And the way that trade show business works is you have these ebbs and flows, this kind of sine curve where, an event gets kind of popular, people start going to it, and then they get tired of it, and a new event comes out and it gets less popular, and then they have to retweak it or move it. And that's everybody
likes the shiny thing, man.
Yeah, but that's every event follows this kind of sine curve. So when we kind of brought it back, it had been dormant for, I want to say about 15, 20 years, maybe a little less than that. I think the last one they held was in like 1999 or something like that. We brought it back in 2015.
Okay. Now, how do you make your money off of this? By selling like spots to vendors?
Well, we have yet to make any money off of it, but
that's not good.
Well, it pays its own bills. It doesn't cost me anything.
That's good.
More than anything, I think it's an event and it's a venue that is required for a lot of these bike shops. It's a place they can get together, let your hair down, get some education either on new components. You can bring your staff, you can bring mechanics and salespeople and learn about things like bike fitting or the new hydraulic brakes and how to work on them. You can learn about new components. So when they come into your shop, you're not stuck searching the internet for an hour before you can tell the customer how you're going to fix it. So that's one of the reasons we hold them kind of in the off season. So January, February, and March, when, especially in Chicago, when there's a foot of snow on the ground, no one's really beating down the door to your shop to buy a bicycle. you have a bit more time to learn these things.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I thought that's the best time to buy a bicycle because it's on clearance. I'm the savvy cyclist.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what. So I have two newer bikes, but I've got an 85 Schwinn Traveler that was my father's, and I was restoring it. It's got down tube shifting, and I raced it in a sprint try. It was horrible. Plus, it's like 35 pounds.
Oh yeah. I always tell people the old steel Schwinns, if you're racing on them, it's kind of like those training methods in the 80s when they put the like ankle weights on you, you know.
Oh, I remember those. I was a little bit young, but I mean, I've seen the videos.
Yeah. Once you take those things off, you'll fly.
So tell me the future about your expo. I mean, what's next in your business plan? What do you got planned?
We're trying to not necessarily pivot, but we want to make sure that we are highlighting the aspects of the industry that need to be promoted. One of them is youth cycling. Urban and commuter cycling is a big part of it, cargo bikes, stuff like that. And then e-bikes are a large section that I think most bike shops need to get on board with. And not just on board with, oh yeah, we're going to sell them, but how do we service them? What's the difference between them? How do we help promote a safe version of e-cycling? Because right now I think everyone's kind of in business for themselves in terms of flood the market with as many of these things as possible, and we don't care how they get fixed. That's kind of what we're looking at now, is what areas of the industry and the supply chain can we highlight to promote us as a whole?
I don't know anything about e-bikes. I have like little knowledge about them, other than they're kind of heavy. So
yeah,
thank God I don't have to work on them.
They've been around a long time. They are now getting to the point through miniaturization and where the batteries are getting smaller, the motors are getting smaller, they're getting more powerful, they can recharge faster. But I think there's a lot of stigma. I mean, there's still places you can't ride them, but I think they're incredibly helpful, especially in applications where you don't need a car. Sometimes you can use an e-bike if you live in a city. I live in Atlanta. Yeah, the shop that I run a shop in Chicago, and we get people who used to commute to work, and it used to be 6 miles, and now they live 15 miles away, and it's just outside of what they're comfortable commuting on. So the e-bike is a solution for them. They go from a 2-car household to a 1-car and an e-bike household. So I think there's a lot of that happening. So getting folks on the same page is, how do we fix these? How do we keep them rolling? How do we tell the customer what's the difference between a good bike and a bad bike? That's what we need to be doing on our level, is providing that type of forum for people to come to, interact with the manufacturers, interact with other mechanics, learn best practices for maintaining these things.
I've often wondered how much pedaling actually occurs on an e-bike, or do they just coast on that motor?
So right now there's there's 3 classes of e-bike. So there's pedal assist, which means there's no throttle. It only assists you in pedaling. So I think class 1 is like up to 20 miles per hour. It'll assist. There's another class that goes up to 28 miles per hour. And then there's a third class that allows for a throttle. So I think the folks that are getting the pedal assist ones, they're pedaling just as much. You're just going faster. The throttle ones, there's a lot of controversy as to whether or not, those should be allowed on bike paths or anything else. And I think some of the states are now, getting on board with these definitions as to what they'll allow in state parks or in bike lanes or on bike paths. And all that has to kind of get evened out with a better understanding for the shop, so they can explain it to people. And that helps with everything from safe, because you put someone who's not used to going 28 miles an hour on a bicycle that, weighs 70 pounds, that has disaster written all over it. But with a little bit of education, I think everyone's a lot safer and better off for it.
Better than those Lime scooters. Those are dangerous, and they're all over Atlanta.
Oh yeah, they're all over everywhere. We just got back. We were in Europe for Eurobike, which is a very large trade show for the bicycle industry. Takes place in Frankfurt, and every city we went to in Germany and like the rest of Europe, scooters are absolutely everywhere. They're all over the sidewalks. They're in front of every train station. Yeah.
So, all right, I'm going to get you out of here on this question. Do you have any memorable moments? You can share as many if you want. Any memorable moments from your trade show that stuck in your mind?
There's several. One of them is, so my favorite moment. So everyone thinks that, we're the only event in the building. So they'll say, oh yeah, how come we can't move in until this time? Or how come we can't get out of the building? And why can't these rooms be used? And it's because there's, as much as we like to think that the bicycle industry is the only industry, there's also, weddings and conferences and medical clinics going on. So one of the events that delayed us moving into the expo hall was a dinosaur show.
That's awesome. I love dinosaurs.
I thought so, yeah. So one of the cool things about having my job is you typically get to go to a lot of cool events because the event directors and you interact with the venue sales managers. So you get a lot of cool connections in industries you never even knew about. And it was a traveling dinosaur exhibit, and they had animatronic T-Rexes, and you could bring your kids and they could hunt for fossils, and they had ones you could ride around. But they had this 30-foot T-Rex in the middle of the venue that we had to move into in, 8 hours. And I have to bring in the vendors, and I have to bring in the decorators, and I have to mark off the aisles and clean the thing and put up the pipe and drape and drop off the freight. It's a process. And they broke the T-Rex in the middle of the building.
Oh man, that's
so 1 hour turned into 3, turned into 5, turned into 8. Now the sun's coming up and I still don't have aisles marked down because we can't get rid of this 30-foot T-Rex in the middle of the building because part of the head or the body didn't come off correctly. So now I have the exhibitors coming to load in, and that was my explanation is, well, you're not going to believe this, but a dinosaur is to blame for this delay. And I don't think anyone believed me until they saw the flatbed driving around with the big tail of the dinosaur coming off the back of it. But that's probably my favorite memory of the nonsense I have to deal with.
I say those things aren't really easily replaceable. They're pretty old.
And yeah, it's probably, you can't run out to the store and buy a new dinosaur. So I guess I had to take the time with it.
That's awesome. Maybe one day I'll work part-time at a cycling shop. I live right across the street from Atlanta Cycling, so maybe I'll be a sales associate sometime. But I really would love to come to one of your shows, as employee of a bike shop. They sound interesting.
We like to keep them educational. We also like to keep them lighthearted and fun. So we try to do fun stuff throughout the day. We've had mariachi bands, we've had gymnasts, we've had jugglers, just something to make it a little less strictly business and more entertaining.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
Well, hey Jim, thanks for giving me a little bit of your time today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And good luck with your expos.
All right. Thanks a lot, man.
Have a good day.
I take it easy.